Welcome to another edition of The Urban Therapist. I am your host. Thank you. I am your host, Eddie Jean Hall Jr. And joining me today after a long hiatus of us being away is my good friend, the co-host and the producer of The Urban Therapist, Mr. Lewis Rose. You know what, man? It was so cool with the new music, and then you gave me the hand clap, and you gonna come up with that little horn for you, man? Come on.
Look, I got to work on my sound bank. I'm gonna get that working.
It's 2025, baby. We got to.
Yeah, here we are. Hey, season 3.
See, can you believe it? And folks, we wanna thank everybody for waiting. There's been a lot of things going on the last year that we're just getting started, but we're back. We're ready to get on the roll. And speaking of getting on the roll, Lou, I gotta ask you this. Last night, did you now I don't know. Do you ever watch Saturday Night Live?
I am actually a Saturday Night Live watcher, although have not watched anything recent, and I know they're ready to cut up.
Well, but wait, this year is the 50th anniversary. 24-25 is the 50th anniversary of SNL,
Yes.
right? And they have had the host on there. They had Chris Rock. And last night, Dave Chappelle did the opening monologue. Usually the opening monologue is just a few minutes. His opening monologue was 17 minutes. And
17?
17. It was about
Oh my
17
goodness.
minutes. And he talked about everything from the California wildfires to, and here's my thing, man. So when I last time you and I did the show, Trump was not president.
Right.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that,
It's been
man.
a minute, yeah.
But I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the fact that he's president again.
We don't have to be so surprised.
Listen, all I got to say, like Dave said, I hope. I'm going to hope for the best.
Right.
I am going to really hope for the best. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to have some fun with it in some of the shows coming up, because there's some things going on right now that is really interesting with our new. Well, he's not really new. He's renewed. Our renewed president.
our next iteration
Oh,
of our and not just the president, but even the administration and the folks that he selected to help lead the country. So it'll be interesting.
listen, with Kennedy in there, I don't know what's going to happen to the Food and Drug Administration, and you know, with JD, I guess anybody that owns a cat, every cat lady gonna be in trouble. This thing is gonna be really interesting this first year. But I digress. This is not a political show. We're not talking about that. We are talking about something today that guess it is kind of political when we get to it, but it's important, and that's one of the things we try to do on The Urban Therapist, is talk about those things that are important to us as a society. But before we get to that, hey man, you want to throw on the screen the places where people can find us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Please make sure you follow us. It's I am the urban therapist at gmail.com. If you want to send us an email and ask us about topic or shows, or even if you got a suggestion for a show that you would like us to do. So remember, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So you can find us on just about every type.
Yeah, we actually might be in places that we didn't even list. So if you just search for The Urban Therapist, there's an imposter out there, but we are The Urban Therapist. That is us, and you'll know us by our logo. Yeah. So hey.
By our logo, by our style, by our music. Yeah, you're not going to. It's only one. But listen, Lou, we're trying something new. We got a special guest today,
We do.
and there she is, Miss Angie the Attorney. How you doing, Miss Angie?
Hey there.
Yo,
Hi.
Miss Angie is our special guest today. Angie, I appreciate you being on the air with us. We're bringing some information back. Now, Angie made it clear to me that listen, she is not giving out any free legal advice. So what we're doing, we got topics that we're covering that we're talking about. And Angie, I just appreciate you being on with us. And Angie, since you're here, I got a couple of things. Well, I got one thing I wanted to share with you. This is something that I saw on the news a while back, and
Okay.
I thought it was interesting to me. People that know me know I have a religious slash spiritual background. I don't consider myself a a Christian counselor. I consider myself a counselor who happens to be a Christian. So I respect everybody's spiritual and religious beliefs. That being said, I have never believed in infringing what I believe on other people. But I came across this article that said inside the classrooms at the center of a church state battle. And it talks about this teacher in Louisiana who is suing the state of Louisiana because Louisiana has passed this law. And check this out, it says the law says that every teacher, all public school teachers, have to post the 10 commandments in the front of their classroom in a certain size font, and that they're legally obligated to do this.
Mm.
Mm.
And he is suing the state because of this. Okay, now I know some people may say,
I like that
"Oh, it's
pause
the
there.
it's the Ten Commandments. It's good. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not lie. There's some good stuff in the Ten Commandments, and I believe in the Ten Commandments.
Sure.
But I have to admit, I agree with this teacher that I don't think this is something that should be posted and forced on people, especially young people in school, especially in public schools. Now, if you're a private Christian school, that's a different ball game. But public school, nah.
Now, I also
What's
agree
your
with
take?
with you on that because we do have something that speaks about separation between church and state.
Hmm.
And in speaking about the separation between church and state, it does allow for us to have the division for a reason. And the division is for purposes to allow people to have their freedom of religion, that they're able to practice their religion, but it does not impede on someone else's religious freedom. So although like you stated, it is true that there are good things maybe in within the 10 commandments, and it says good things, do not steal, and do not kill. That's all great things to put forth. But I think to make it where you're in essence kind of impeding on maybe someone else's
Hmm.
religious ideology, that's where you're going to have a problem. And again, you have children that may believe all different things. And how will another child feel if that's not their religious beliefs within the classroom? I just think we're kind of setting ourselves up for, some real issues there. And really, our Constitution already speaks to that separation. So for kind of a legislative branch to make a law where this is a law now that you're going to put this in the classrooms is kind of, you know, it's messing with something that's already a federal issue with our Constitution.
And
So,
and his
it's
I'm sorry,
going to
go
be
ahead.
interesting. No, it's going to be interesting to see how this further plays out. But I think that
Yeah,
you got a state law that kind of is trying to stretch
trying to stretch his
its
muscles.
correct.
But see, but here's what's interesting to me. I'm confused at how people in legislature would even want to do this when one of the things we were built on as a country is freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and now you're going to try to impose a religious belief. Listen to this. In the same article, it says, along with the Louisiana Ten Commandments law and similar legislation, Texas, of course, it would be Texas. Texas plans to file in 2025. There are laws like the one in Oklahoma, like the ones like laws in Oklahoma, which were introduced last summer. Check this out: mandates the Bible be taught in grades 5 through 12. That's what Texas is pushing for.
Right.
That the Bible that is mandated. So who's going to teach it? What are they going to teach? And like you said, so what about everybody else? I don't know. This is, and again, I believe in God. I believe in the Bible, but I do not believe in pushing this on people. And this is getting scary.
Well, I mean, you said religious freedom. Anybody heard of the Pilgrims? Like, I mean, we we love to study history, but then we forget it, right? So
Right.
the Pilgrims were trying to escape religious oppression. They were trying to seek religious freedom and go to a place where they could have the religion and form of religion that they wanted, and that's how they wound up here on Plymouth Rock, in Jamestown. So the idea is that you know I always say history is doomed to repeat itself if
Mm.
we don't know it and don't understand it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Very
And
true.
people need to pay attention because if this goes through in one state, it's going to be a trickle down effect. And then it's going to be other areas of your life that is going to be influenced by what the government says you and I should believe. So that's just something I wanted to talk about today because I'm looking at this is what's happening in Louisiana is potentially a model for the rest of the nation in terms of infusing conservative Christianity into public education.
Well, just one more thing I wanted to say on that, if I could. And
Hmm.
I just think
Sure.
I think it's a slippery slope. It could be because I believe that with introducing the Bible, let's be honest, it then becomes whose interpretation of the biblical principles and how are we,
Mhm.
like you said, who's going to teach it, how are we going to teach it. And let's be honest in saying we have right now so many different churches that teach from a Bible but have their different thoughts
Yep.
of biblical teachings from the same Bible. So it's interesting as to whose is going to reign supreme as to what biblical teachings are correct, what biblical teachings are the ones that are right. And the thing about the Bible or the thing about religion, which is so interesting, is that people become very mine is the truth, the truth,
Hmm.
and then it's very much you can't say anything bad about that one thing. It's like it becomes very, I don't want to say fanatical, but people do become very
Territorial.
forceful. Yeah, very forceful in their approach to what they believe is the truth. So
Yeah.
I just think you go down a very slippery slope with this.
I agree. So listen, that's the thing that was on my mind today. I appreciate y'all listening. But what about you, Angie? Did you have anything that you wanted to kick it about for a minute before we get going
Well,
into the
really,
show?
the only thing, and you kind of touched on it earlier, was with the fires that are happening in California.
Mm.
In LA. I just think, quick thing that really touched on me, because it was two contrasting stories that came out of what was going on. And first foremost, I would like to say prayers and, thoughts, prayers going to everyone that's being touched by what's happening in the fires.
Mm.
It's so much devastation, so much going out, so much going on there. The first responders and volunteers, people that are there actually helping those that are being affected by the fires. I think we can only just continue to have our support for those that are helping out. But there were two contrasting stories that kind of came out and kind of touched me, and I just wanted to kind of give a quick
Okay.
spotlight to. One was they said that one of the first victims that from one of the fires was an individual that was still holding on to the hose as
Mm.
he was trying to save his house. They found, and I just saw that as a compounded tragedy, right? It's like
Mhm.
this individual who probably could have maybe still left with his life, but he was trying to still save his house, save whatever property was inside, right? So that's one story. But then there was another story that came out of the fires that really touched me. And it was a story of an individual who had evacuated, but he tried to get back to where his house was, I guess days after the fire had, I guess they were giving clearance for him to be able to go back and see what was going on where his house was. And he just wanted to go back because he had left a couple of pets and he wanted to see that his pets were still okay.
Okay.
And when he went up there, he had found one of the pets on his way up the hill, but he still was looking for one more pet. And he went to where his house was and it was just rubble. And he called out to his pet, and I think the pet's name was Oreo. He called out to Oreo. He said, Oreo. And when I say you saw this little fur ball come out of the rubble, and it was actually not even from his home, it was from a neighbor's
Hmm.
rubble, and came out and then just started with the feet, just came down the hill, and the man just picked the little fur ball up, and just this the noise that came out of the man was just this joyous noise. I mean, really truly, I rewatched this about 5 times
Wow.
because it was just to hear this. I mean, he just started prancing around almost like he had found his home intact,
Hmm.
he
Wow.
had this
Wow.
joyous eruption because he had found his Oreo, right? And
Oh.
again, two contrasting stories came out of this tragedy, because it's still a tragedy. I mean,
It's
everything that's
huge,
happening,
yeah.
it's the devastation. But I said to myself, what can I learn from this? What can I find from these two stories? And I said, for one person, they with everything that was going on, they thought everything that they had was inside this house. Everything that they owned was in the house. And instead of leaving with their life, they still could have left with their life. They allowed themselves to perish with what they thought was, what they had, which was
Most
the stuff
important
inside the
thing.
home. But another man left with his life, but came back and still had a glimmer of hope to what he may still find with his life. And he left with his Oreo, right? So I only say that to say I think it's about perspective. I think it's about that, like, God does still gift us the ability to have life. When he gives us that, there's still the ability to have hope, to be able to share that with others. And, that's what I got from it. I'm not sure maybe what you gained from what I've said, but
Oh,
Yeah, I
that
saw
was
that
beautiful.
story. Yeah, I
That was
saw it, and
beautiful.
it was really touching to see the dog just come running up, and I mean that man was just like he looked like he had won the lottery
Oh,
because
wow.
in a way he did, right?
mm,
Uh,
Like for his pet to have survived that horrible fire. Yeah.
I have not seen that yet. I'm going to have to watch it. That is. That is great. And you talk about hope. I think this is a good segue into our special guest for tonight because she deals with helping people find hope uh, out of sometimes very tragic situations. There's it's no mystery or no secret that our prison system in the United States needs help. And there are people who wind up going to prison, some justifiably so, for crimes that they have committed, but they are not always treated fairly. And we need people and we need individuals who will fight for the rights of those who deserve proper treatment, deserve fair hearing, just deserve to be treated right. So, our next guest is a very special friend of mine, Miss Vanessa Williams. She is a therapist and a prison rights activist. Vanessa, I appreciate you joining us today. See, actually, Vanessa, I thought Lewis was going to come in with the hand clap a little sooner. That's why I was slow rolling the intro a little bit, but he did do it. So let me share a little bit about Vanessa, and then I'm going to let her toot her own horn. This is what she sent me. And she said, I can say it. She works with Florida Cares. She works with the FBI. She works with FAMM. You got to explain that to us. And with multiple other organizations pursuing reform, better communication for inmates, and the things that are impacting them, especially here in the state of Florida. And you were saying, Vanessa, that pretty soon you're going to be lobbying. It's tomorrow, right? In Tallahassee?
The 21st, I'll be in Tallahassee. Yes. It's
Okay.
National Lobby Day for them. So we will be speaking. Yeah, everyone with Florida Cares will be there.
Okay. All right. So now I'm used to calling
So
Vanessa.
we will go around to the different legislators.
Okay. So you'll be going around trying to
I
influence
think that's a
them and talk to them about
delight.
making changes. So V, I'm used to calling you V, but you share with me that those who know you in prison reform are used to calling you know you by GG. So we want to let them know that we
Mhm.
got GG here with us, GG Williams. So V, let's start with this. The topic I wanted to talk about is called the Prison Release Reoffender Law. But before we talk about that, if you don't mind, because I know this is your baby, let me ask you, why and how did you get into the field of prison reform?
I have a little brother incarcerated, Marcus Broadnax. Hi, Marcus. And my husband, Mark. Um, really, I also worked for the prison system for a time
Mhm.
and saw the horrendous conditions, mainly in the northern Florida prisons. I was just thinking to myself, how could you ever be rehabilitated from this? The things that went on there were just absolutely unbelievable. They do disproportionately affect Black men. As you probably are already aware in the system, they make up a huge percentage of the PRR, 74%. Even though the Black population, according to the US Census, is only 17% Black in Florida.
So, for people who don't know, what is the PRR? What's the PRR, and why is this something that even the average citizen should be aware of and should be thinking about?
So the PRR was enacted in the 90s, May 30th, 1997, and it was supposed to curb all of the violent and high crime rates of Florida. So some of the different Florida.gov sites will tell you that it did, and it's just not true. Florida still to this day has one of the highest crime rates in the entire nation. Um, it did not do what it was affected to do. And on top
Okay.
of that, a lot of the people who were offered plea bargains and didn't take them were then automatically hit with the life sentence.
Mm.
Polk County, for one, they use the PRR 100% of the time. So the prisoner reoffender release is when you have committed a felony normally, you're released from prison, and within 3 years you commit another felony. They then have the jurisdiction to give you the mandatory sentencing, which has been up to life for a lot of individuals, with no gain time and no chance of ever being released. Now, mind you, the majority of the people who were sentenced under life and did
Wait a
not
minute.
take the
Hold on. Let me
plea.
let me jump in real quick. I got to ask a question on that. I want to make sure I heard you clearly. So you're saying if
Mhm.
okay, let's say I committed a felony and I come out, if within 36 months I commit another felony, then they can lock me up and throw away the key.
Mhm.
Without a trial, I can just
No,
be
you go to
automatically
trial.
sentenced. I
Right.
have a trial.
You'll have a trial, yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of times what happens is they'll offer a plea, which might be 20, 30 years. A lot of these people, their circumstances, they warrant a trial. That's our right as Americans, is to have a fair trial by jury, right?
Right.
Okay. The lawyer knows more about this than me, but correct me if I'm saying anything
You're
wrong.
right.
But they want to go to trial. Just, 20 years is a long time out of a 20-year-old's life. A lot of these men were in their 20s when this happened, right? They're now in their
Okay.
40s. So what happens is they don't want the plea, they want to go to trial, and then in
Right.
turn, they're almost punished for not taking the plea, and they end up with life sentences. They have no option after that for gain time to be released. It's life, period. Mind you, the majority of these individuals did not do any kind of, sexual oriented crime. They didn't do a violent crime, as far as no one was injured or murdered. Not all of them, but almost all of the cases, there was no crime upon another person where this person was injured.
Right. I
So
kind of wanted to interject a little
go ahead.
bit.
Sure.
So it kind of
Mhm.
seems as though, because I was going to say, you kind of answered a lot of the questions that I had written down, which had to do with like the disparate impact of it being with our Black men. You hit on
Mhm.
those very, very early, because a lot of times what they do is they'll have a law that is neutral on its face, but then it
Mhm.
still affects, the disparate impact will heavily impact Black men when it's implemented.
Definitely.
So, like you
Mhm.
stated, we're 17% of the population, but it's affecting 74% of Black men, the actual
Mhm.
implementation of this law. So,
Yep.
what it seemed to be doing to me is it's more about giving your state attorney or the state bargaining power when it comes to when they're saying take this plea and they're saying I don't want to take a plea. Is giving
Mhm.
them a heavier hand to be able to say, well, you don't take the plea, this is what we're going to throw at you.
Exactly.
Like, we're going to give
And
you
that's
all
what
this time. Right.
happened.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so let me ask the two of you a question. So when we use the word felony, okay, a lot of times when people think of the word felony or a person as a felon, they think, oh my God, this person, this man or this woman has committed some hideous or horrendous crime, and so, they deserve to be thrown under the jail or to get the electric chair or, death by lethal injection. So let me, what are some felonies that people wind up getting in trouble for?
A lot of them, for the life sentencing, they are armed robbery. I'll be honest. They do involve a
Okay.
gun. However, let me make an example. So, one of the cases that they just did, I don't know the date of it, but they did a PBS special on. Now, this gentleman was white with a college degree. He got into drugs. He had a drug problem. So, as
Mhm.
you know, Florida is ranked almost dead last in mental health services. We
Right.
just don't have them. They're not good. They're not effective. They don't help anyone. So, he got into drugs. He went to rob a woman, but in her car, he didn't rob her, and instead he got afraid. He got scared, and then he took off running. So in essence, I think he had a gun. It didn't go any further than that. He went up to the car and then he kind of ran off. There's probably more details to that story, but that's the gist of it. He got a life sentence because he had been in trouble before, which brings me to another statistic. So I believe it is more.
He got a
it
life.
is
He
more
got
than
a
half.
life.
Yeah. So and no, and she wasn't hurt.
He
More than
didn't shoot
half
her.
of
He didn't hurt her.
individuals.
Wow.
No, no, not at all. More than half of people incarcerated have substance abuse or mental health issues.
Okay.
So, had they got treatment, had we had a more effective mental health system for substance abuse and mental illness, a lot of these people would have never ended up in this situation. Mind you, a lot of them were in their early 20s when they were sentenced with the PRR and the life sentencing, and your brain is not even developed till about 26. They needed rehabilitation, they needed help. A lot of these men come from families where there was a severe socioeconomic impact, racial disparities, trauma. They needed help, they needed services, and they could have very well been rehabilitated before it escalated to the point that it did. But another point, most of these guys are in their 40s now, and the rate of them getting out and committing another crime is extremely low. New York did a published study on that it was about 7% out of everyone who was released by the time they were close to 50 recommitted some kind of crime, not necessarily violent, just some type of crime. I think the national statistic is even lower than that. It's very low. Most of these guys, they've served 20, 25 years. They've learned their lesson. They just want to go home to their families. And I don't see any reason they should be denied that. I see child molesters getting 10 to 15 to 20 year sentences and getting out. What is the rate of them recommitting? It's pretty high.
Right.
So, okay, so allow me to play the devil's advocate a little bit on this, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is for you and for Angie. So, getting back to a felony charge. So, let's take so you're telling me that in the process of this prison release reoffender, a felony could be something that's nonviolent, and so I can get
For
life. Go ahead.
the
I guess
PRR, it is normally for the
no, no, go
PRR,
ahead.
it is normally considered a violent crime. It's normally involving a gun, armed robbery,
Right.
things like that.
So doesn't that make it a good thing then? I mean, isn't
Would
it?
you want to be defined?
Hmm?
Would you want to be defined by the one thing you've done in your life that you regret? Would you want that to be the definition of your life?
Okay, so now when you say the definition of my life, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of society. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do we protect our law-abiding citizens from individuals? Isn't this a deterrent? Isn't this what the PRR is supposed to be? I'm looking at it. It says, what does the PRR law do? It requires courts to sentence PRR offenders to the maximum statutory sentence for their offense, which you were saying. It prohibits PRR offenders from receiving gang time or early release. So that means they got to stay there. They can't get back out on the street.
Let me
And
just say
it
something
requires
real quick.
PRR offenders to serve 100% of their sentence. If somebody comes out and reoffends and is violent,
If you're mentally ill or you have a substance abuse problem, is that going to deter you? No, it's not. You're not in your right state of mind to begin with.
but if we put them back in based on the PRR, then they're off the street.
But are they getting services?
I'm sorry. What did you say, Angie?
I said, but are they getting services? Are we? So my
Right.
question always about going to prison or jail is, what is the purpose of prison and jail? Is it to punish or is it to rehabilitate? Is it for the purposes of putting someone in there just to punish them for what they've done, or is it to rehabilitate them so that they can come back out and become members of society, to reintegrate into our society as productive members of society? And if it's not truly to do
Right.
that, then what's truly the purpose? And what
But
I'm
if I keep
kind of
them in there, I don't have to worry about society
well,
anymore
but
because
that's the
according to this
thing.
law, they're staying. They will
The
leave
thing I think is
out
what's
way.
being stated is, it seems as though what's the problem with this is a few things that I've kind of
Okay.
noted. Number one is, I have a problem with the legislative branch kind of taking away from the judicial branch, which means they've taken some power away from the judicial, which is the judicial should have the power to, they've kind of taken away some of the judicial discretion, which is the judiciary branch, the bench, should be able to hear the facts of a case and should be able to have heard, like, the story, the case that she stated with the man that uh started a crime and then got scared and kind of went away and didn't do the crime fully. The judiciary should have been able to say that was a mitigating circumstance, and maybe he could have taken some of that sentence and alleviated some of that. You hear what I'm saying? It's a mitigating factor
But
within
but
his
the but
sentencing.
but doesn't the PRR take away
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the
take away
litigate
any
the
chances of him doing something worse next
no.
time?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I believe the legislative branch, in a way, has taken away what the judiciary is supposed to do. If truly the judiciary is supposed to be about fairness, it's supposed to be about justice, sometimes it's not a one size fits all thing. It's that some cases you have to hear all of the facts and evidence, and you have to be able to allow for a specialized, you know what I'm saying, someone that is able to hear all of those facts, and then and is able to then say what the sentence is for that person. I believe that. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Go
And
ahead,
my
V.
Yeah, I agree.
Come on, go ahead, V. Go ahead.
So
I'm sorry. I mean,
let's take
Gigi.
into
I got to
fact
get used to Gigi. Go ahead.
a lot of these people are coming in with substance abuse and mental health issues.
Okay.
So they're having problems regulating themselves to begin with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, in especially the northern Florida prisons where there's a lot of abuse and corruption going on, I could pull multiple reports. They end up for simple things like not wanting to come out and take a shower. These guards are meant to keep order and to keep everyone safe, but they take this to a whole other level and extreme. So they get the power becomes too much for them. A lot of them are very uneducated, to be totally honest with you, and they can't deal with the kind of authority they have, and they end up abusing it. So now, so for a simple thing, they're in a DR, the inmate, okay, a disciplinary report. Now they end up getting these and they get frustrated. They get another one because they're arguing for every little thing. These people are written DRs. They go on close management after that. Close management is they're locked up for almost 24 hours a day. Some of them only get out in a cage for 1 hour a week. I'm seeing one. They only use the phone to call their loved ones one time the whole month. And then the secure system would have to be another episode in entirety. But anyway, they don't have a form of communication really with their loved ones. They just lose hope and they lose sight of everything. They continue to get DRs. They never get off close management. A lot of the people that I've seen have been on close management for 20 years. Close management is compared to solitary, it's pretty much the same thing. This aggravates their mental health. It aggravates everything. You know, there's a high suicide rate on close management on top of the abuse that's going on, and there's no rehabilitation going on.
So, Gigi, with that, with what you've seen, and with what you've seen and what you've experienced, what would you say are some of the things that are needed in order to make a difference, in order to improve the system? What can individuals who have listened to you today and who have been following the PRR and seeing what's going on, what can people do in a positive way to try to make a difference?
I think the main thing would be to join the Florida Cares, speak at the legislative, write the legislation, write the senators, advocate for change. That's the biggest thing. I mean, there's such corruptive things going on in the prison. I don't know how else to put it, but it just, these people cannot be rehabilitated when they're being tortured, when they're being starved, when they don't do what they're told, they're being beat off camera. These are things I've reported to the FBI. These are things that are happening. Several of the prisons have been in trouble in the past. Some of them have made changes. Down where I'm at in Southwest Florida, their prison is run pretty good now. In Northern Florida, the stuff that I've had to report to the FBI is you wouldn't even be able to imagine.
Okay. So on the outside, you're saying for people who haven't had the experience, haven't seen what you've seen, but they are seeing this. They are seeing that this PRR is going down. They're trying to get this going. It's unfair, and I appreciate you and Angie allowing me to play the devil's advocate, because we want to talk about both sides, because there are people who do think the way that I presented it today, that it is a form of protection, but what you're sharing with me is disproportionately used. It's not helping the system. There are changes that need to be made overall in the system itself. And I think in order for those things to be made, it's going to start on the outside. We've got to get people who are willing to run for office. We've got to get people who are willing to work in the prison system, and not only in the security part. And that part is important, because after working in the system now, having experience is one of those things where, like any career or any organization, or any system, you have people who are in it to help, and then you have people that are in it just to get paid. You have people that care. You have people that don't care. We need people who are passionate and who want to make a difference to get involved. So we're asking you
Yeah,
all, folks.
definitely.
Go ahead. We're going to let you wrap it up. Go ahead, V.
I was just going to say, if anything, with the PRR law, give them something to work towards, give them some hope, let them start accruing gain time on their behavior. Let them actually be able to participate in programs so that they can get out and be productive with their families, they're productive in their life. But without any hope, and falling into a dark place.
So on this side, when the men and women come out the first time, we need to make sure we got more things in place to help them with the substance abuse issues, with the mental health issues, with the employment issues. So, folks, if you're listening, hey, listen, now's the time to get involved. You don't just sit back and say, oh, that's horrible. Oh, that shouldn't be. I can't believe they're doing that. We need you to get involved. If you are an employer, hey, listen, be willing to hire somebody. If you're a mental health counselor or therapist, hey, listen, do some pro bono work. Whatever field that you're in, listen, these are individuals who have paid the price for their crimes. They're out. They want to do better. They want to make a difference in society. They need an opportunity. They need an opportunity. And we need you to help give some opportunities to these men and women that need them. And this will help dealing with this PRR, because if people are doing good, they're not going to reoffend. If I can work, if I can make money, if I can take care of my family, there's less chances of me doing things that, I was doing, or that's going to get me in trouble. That's the way I look at it. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Oh, I agree.
Okay. Gigi, aka Vanessa, aka V. Listen, we appreciate you joining us today. And this was Hey, this is just phase one. We want to have you back again, especially as you are doing your thing, going about pushing for reform, getting involved, doing different things. Miss Angie, appreciate you joining us today. And I'm hoping that you will come back and share more of your expertise with us as we continue this journey in 2025 with the Urban Therapist. And Lou, before we go, and V, you got to stay by for this. Lewis and I started this thing, last season. We have a WT. What is it, Lou? WTF. That's not what you think. Is where's that from? We don't use that, but where is that from? And Lewis comes up with some topic, issue, something that we just said, man, where is that from? So what you got today, Lou?
Well, we just left the holiday season, and a lot of times during the holidays, people love to talk about turkeys. So I've got a interesting news show that took a little different twist on holiday turkey eating. I can't say any more. It'll explain itself. How about it?
Okay.
It's time to talk turkey, ladies and gentlemen. Dark meat, fattier, juicier. I love that dark meat.
I know you
That's
do.
why I went right. I went right after it with that leg yesterday.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, there was no thought about getting a knife and getting those breasts with the white meat. It was all about that leg.
You prefer the dark meat as well? I have always preferred dark meat, but if things don't work out this Thanksgiving, I think I'm going to switch and start going after the white meat exclusively. And I mean that sincerely.
Put a little gravy on it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you got enough gravy. You have to work with it. You just got to, I think I can work with the white meat. I do. You can trust the white meat. It's pretty good. It's a little dry. It's consistent. It's reliable.
So you got to put some gravy on it.
It's always a little dry, but we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Good stuff.
I'm switching over.
Really, man. You know what? I'm not going to even touch that.
HR.
I'm not going to even touch that. OMG.
All I can say
Angela, I'm so sorry that you two were exposed to that for our season opener. I expected more from my producer.
Oh, did you?
Really? No, not really, man, but wow.
Hilarious.
They went all in on that.
All I can say is, all I'm doing is just bringing you the clips. I didn't make them. I didn't tell them to say it. What do you say? There's probably a lot to unpack in that news office, in that newsroom.
Hilarious.
Oh boy.
Yes, well, I guess somebody gonna start singing Jungle Fever over there. I guess I don't know. V, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you being with us today. Good success to you as you continue to go forward, promoting prison reform. Listen, our show is a platform for you to come back and talk about more things. If you have specific topics and issues you want to bring back, listen, just text me. Let me know. We'll make time, give you a segment so you can talk about it, because I know you're out there working hard. I appreciate what you do. Angie, thank you for being with us again. Lewis,
Thank you.
you're going to take us out. You're going to show the screen, man, so we can let people know where they can listen to Gigi and get more information. They can join us on Twitter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Please make sure you follow us. It's I am the urban therapist at gmail.com. If you want to send us an email and ask us about topic or shows, or even if you got a suggestion for a show that you would like us to do. So remember, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.